We're going to be launching a deep dive today into a case file that, even now, nearly 2 decades on, it's one that just frustrates everyone who looks at it.
It really does. It's an analytical deadlock, a puzzle with pieces that seem like they belong to different boxes.
We are, of course, analyzing the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse.
The date that you need to hold in your mind is January 24th, 2006.
And the place is Orlando, Florida. Specifically, the mosaic at Millennia Condominiums.
Our sources for this and our analysis, they detail a criminal execution. But it's not defined by what you typically expect, chaos or overt violence.
No. It's defined by a chilling, methodical precision.
And we're here to investigate why that very precision has created this perfect, unbreakable deadlock.
Before we get into the timeline, the evidence, we have to start with the person at the center of this.
You have to. Jennifer was 24 years old. She was a financial analyst. And her life profile, who she was, is absolutely essential because it immediately frames the entire event.
Yeah.
Well, she was, by every account we have, highly responsible, very organized, very reliable.
She just bought her own condo.
Right. She had a great, stable job, a devoted fiancé, a close family. She was, what you would call a non-risk taker. Her life was on a very clear, very positive track.
And that stability, that predictable routine, that's what makes this crime so deeply unsettling from the very first moment.
It is, because it instantly dismisses one of the first theories you look at in any missing persons case.
A voluntary departure.
Exactly. The idea she just walked away from her life, it doesn't fit the profile, it doesn't fit the facts. Her removal from that life was immediate, and it was non-consensual.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really synthesize the hard facts, and there are so few of them.
There are. And these few facts combine to create an incident file that just, it defies conventional criminal profiling.
We're investigating a vanishing act that was, for all intents and purposes, almost perfect in its execution.
Almost.
So to understand that precision, we have to start with the timeline. We have to narrow it down.
And we start with the last moment of absolute certainty. The night before she disappeared.
Which would be January 23rd.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jennifer was on the phone with her fiancé. He was traveling, on his way back from a trip.
And this final confirmed contact, it took place at about what time?
Between approximately 10:00 p.m. and 10:11 p.m. that night.
And the conversation itself?
It was completely routine. They talked about her getting home safely, his travel, her plans for a busy workday the next day. Her fiancé reported absolutely zero signs of distress.
No anxiety, no mention of meeting someone, no sense that anything was out of the ordinary?
Nothing at all. It was the last normal moment.
And the next morning, the crime scene, her condo, it gives us this chilling timestamp of the exact moment that normality was shattered.
Yeah, the scene analysis of the interrupted routine. It's like a photograph.
When law enforcement finally gets into the unit, it's frozen. Frozen at the precise moment she was preparing to leave for work.
A forensic snapshot. You can see what she'd already done. For instance, the shower stall was still damp.
So she had finished her shower.
Absolutely. Which proves she was well into her daily regimen. This wasn't something that happened in the middle of the night.
And her clothes.
Clothes for her workday were laid out. We also know her hair and makeup tools were on the counter. Some had been used, some hadn't.
Which suggests the interruption, the attack, whatever it was, it happened during the absolute final stages of her getting ready.
She was just minutes, maybe seconds, from walking out that door.
And this is where the analysis of what's present and what's absent becomes so critical for defining the moment of attack.
It is. So what was there? Her purse, her wallet, all her credit cards, her ID.
And crucially, her house keys.
Yes. Her house keys were found inside the condo. Think about what that means. She had not yet performed that final action. The one you do right before you lock the door behind you.
She hadn't gathered everything to secure the apartment.
Correct. But, and this is the critical exception, her cell phone and her car keys were missing.
And that small detail, it provides two massive analytical anchors for this entire case.
It really does. Let's take the first one.
Okay.
Anchor one. By taking her phone and her car keys, it shows she had retrieved the last necessary item she needed to physically exit the unit and start her vehicle. She was at the very last step.
So she was literally seconds away from walking through that front door.
That's how close it was. And anchor two is just as important.
Which is?
The person who did this, they now have her car keys. They secured possession of the keys. This isn't just about overpowering her. It's about controlling her mode of transport. Her car was part of the plan.
So all of these facts together, they pin the abduction window down with a really frightening specificity.
Frightening is the word. It had to have happened between approximately 7:30 a.m. and 7:45 a.m.
She vanished in broad daylight.
In broad daylight, during a time when her condo complex should have been busy, people leaving for work, a lot of potential witnesses.
And that's what makes the physical impossibility of the scene so hard to comprehend.
It is. You look at the unit itself. No signs of forced entry. No struggle inside. The deadbolt wasn't even engaged.
Nothing was overturned. There was no chaos.
So that tells you one thing for certain. The abduction, the moment where control was asserted over her, it had to have happened outside.
In that incredibly high-risk, very confined space between her front door and her parked car.
A silent, high-precision act in the open.
So what are the plausible scenarios here? I mean, how does this happen?
Well, the lack of any struggle inside the unit really only leaves two possibilities. The first is an ambush at the car.
Someone was just waiting for her.
Exactly. Lying in wait. Maybe they'd watched her routine for days, knew exactly when she'd come out, and they grabbed her the second she was in that vulnerable space by her vehicle.
Okay, what's the second one?
The second one is, to me, even more terrifying. Acquaintance deception at the door.
Meaning she opened the door to someone she knew.
Or at least someone she thought had a legitimate reason to be there. A maintenance worker. Maybe someone she recognized from the construction crews on site. She drops her guard for a split second.
And they gain immediate control. With a weapon, or just through the element of surprise, and then they force her out to the car using the keys she was already holding.
That's the scenario. But whether it was an ambush or a deception, the fundamental challenge to our understanding remains the same.
How did the abductor achieve total compliance and total silence?
In the open air, during morning rush hour, with no one seeing a thing.
That's the first major signal of the chilling efficiency that just defines this entire case.
Right. And then for 2 days, there's nothing. Silence.
Until January 26th, 2 days later. And this is what everyone thought was the big break.
Of course. Her car was found. Jennifer Kesse's black 2004 Chevrolet Malibu.
And it wasn't far. It was discovered just 1.25 miles away from her own complex.
In the parking lot of another condominium complex, the Huntington on the Green.
So you have this quick retrieval just down the road. You'd think this would be a gold mine of evidence.
You would. You'd expect fibers, fingerprints, DNA, something about the perpetrator's movements or identity.
But it gave them nothing. Worse than nothing.
Let's talk about the positioning of the car for a second. It was found parked, locked, and it was facing a tall black chain link fence.
That's strange, right? It's not a normal way to park.
It's very strange. It maximizes the distance from the complex entrance, and it minimizes any visibility from the main road. It's almost like it was deliberately hidden in plain sight.
So the car is intact, it's locked. That suggests control. But the state of the interior, that's where this goes from a breakthrough to an analytical nightmare.
This is where we have to analyze the forensic failure. And really, it's not a failure of the police. It's a testament to the perpetrator's criminal intelligence.
The reports use the phrase clinically sterile.
Let's unpack what that actually means in a cold case context. Clinically sterile isn't just, the absence of a few obvious fingerprints.
It's much more than that.
Much more. It means the most specialized techniques they had in 2006 failed. Luminol, which is used to detect the chemical presence of blood, even if it's been cleaned up. It didn't activate anywhere.
No blood.
No trace of blood. And then you have the trace evidence vacuums. These things are designed to pick up microscopic evidence, a single hair, a clothing fiber, tiny skin cells.
And they found
nothing that was foreign to Jennifer Kesse, no recoverable foreign DNA, and absolutely no usable fingerprints from the person who drove that car.
You don't achieve that by accident. That implies premeditation. It implies a high level of awareness.
You're talking about someone who was actively using counter-forensic measures. They had to have been wearing gloves, and they likely wiped down the entire interior with an aggressive chemical agent, something like bleach, which just destroys biological evidence.
And that takes time. That takes planning. You have to bring the supplies with you.
And that same ruthless approach was applied to the exterior of the car, the door handles, the trunk lid, the steering wheel, the gear shift.
All the driver's side contact points.
Meticulously wiped clean. Every single place a person would naturally touch to operate or exit the vehicle. Gone.
This is that profound contradiction we mentioned at the start.
It is. The abduction itself seems like a high-risk, almost impulsive act in broad daylight. But the cleanup was cold, calculating, And it shows a chilling degree of criminal sophistication.
It feels like two different criminals. It elevates the suspect from just an opportunistic attacker to someone with an alarming foresight about evidence preservation.
Or evidence elimination in this case. The impulsive strike and the clinical aftermath, they just don't seem to belong to the same person.
There was one last key detail about the vehicle when it was recovered.
A very important one. The car keys and Jennifer's cell phone were not in the car.
So the perpetrator didn't just dump the car. They walked away from that sterile vehicle, still holding the physical items that connected them directly back to the victim.
They kept the trophies, or, more likely, they kept the tools they might need later, and they disposed of them elsewhere.
So with the car being a forensic dead end, the entire investigation shifts its focus.
It had to. It shifted entirely to the only other piece of evidence they had, the visual evidence. And this is the part of the file that is just, it's intensely frustrating.
We're talking about the CCTV footage.
Yes, the footage was captured not by Jennifer's complex, but by an adjacent one, the lodge at Lake Destiny. The camera was pointed at the perimeter of the parking lot where the Malibu was abandoned.
And this footage captures a single person parking Jennifer's car and then walking away.
And the timestamp on that footage is absolutely critical to understanding this case.
What was the time?
Between 12:00 p.m. and 12:03 p.m. on January 24th, the same day she vanished.
Okay, let's analyze that. The abduction happened around 7:45 a.m. The car is parked at noon.
That's a 4-hour gap, more than 4 hours. What was happening during that time?
Well, it immediately rules out the simplest explanation, right?
Absolutely. The idea that Jennifer was just held in the back of her own car for 4 hours in a public condo parking lot in Orlando,
Yeah.
it's highly, highly improbable.
So the deduced timeline, the most plausible scenario, is that she was moved almost immediately after the abduction.
To a secondary, controlled environment, a safe place for the abductor.
This location, wherever it was, it gave the perpetrator 4 hours of complete, unquestioned control. And after that time, they were comfortable enough to return, dispose of the car, and just walk away in the middle of the day.
And that secondary location is the true ghost of this case. We have no idea where it was. It implies the suspect had access to a secured space nearby.
What kind of space?
It could be anything. A vacant apartment they were working on, a friend's empty garage, maybe even their own home. A place that offered them total anonymity to do whatever they were going to do.
And now we have to address the single most baffling detail of this entire file. The reason we still call this suspect a phantom or a silhouette.
The phantom effect.
Explain the layout of the camera and the scene.
So the security camera at the lodge at Lake Destiny, it's positioned to capture vehicles entering and leaving. And running directly between that camera lens and the path the suspect walked is a tall black chain link fence.
Just a standard fence.
A standard fence, supported by numerous thin vertical metal posts.
And when you look at the footage, the visual result, it defies all common sense. It seems statistically impossible.
It does. Because of this incredible, improbable alignment of the suspect's movement, the camera angle, and the timing, the suspect's face is obscured.
Not just in one frame.
In every single usable frame of the footage.
Every frame. As the person walks, their stride, their speed, their exact position as they move through the camera's field of view, it aligns perfectly, frame by frame, with those fence posts, creating this unbroken, moving mass.
Think about the mechanics of that. The fence posts themselves are only a few inches wide. For a person walking at a normal pace to have their face shielded by such a narrow obstacle consecutively frame after frame, it's a mathematical improbability.
It is. It shouldn't happen by chance.
Which brings us to the most critical question of the entire investigation.
Was it luck?
Was this suspect just incredibly, unbelievably lucky? Did the universe just happen to align to protect their identity at that exact moment?
Or is the answer something far more chilling?
What if it was intentional? What if this person knew that camera was there, knew the angles, knew the geometry of the fence, and they deliberately timed their stride to exploit that structural blind spot?
If that's true, it points to a frightening level of premeditation and a deep familiarity with that specific disposal site.
An opportunistic criminal just parks the car and runs. An intelligent criminal who knows how to time their steps to hide behind fence posts in broad daylight. That's not an opportunist. That's someone executing a very precise plan.
But that completely undercuts the idea that the abduction itself was impulsive.
It does. It brings us right back to that unbearable contradiction at the heart of the case.
So let's focus on what the footage did give us. It wasn't a face, but it was a silhouette, a build, a way of walking.
Right. A physical profile was established. It was based on body geometry, comparing the figure to the car, to the background elements.
And the main takeaway was the height?
The height, yes.
Yeah.
The individual is consistently estimated to be short. Factoring in the camera angle, the best analysis places them somewhere between 5'3" and 5'5".
That's 160 to 165 centimeters.
And that height range is so critical because it's what introduces the definitive ambiguity. A 5'3" to 5'5" profile could easily be a smaller man.
Which is the default assumption in most violent crimes.
It is, but it could just as easily be an average height woman.
Right.
Or even a shorter young adult. The gait, the way the person walks, it's not decisive enough to confirm gender one way or the other.
And the clothing. That seemed to point in a very specific direction.
It did. The attire is loose-fitting. It looks like a uniform, something consistent with manual labor. A light-colored, maybe white top and light-colored pants.
That immediately puts the focus on construction workers, maintenance staff, painters, landscapers.
The very people who had routine, daily, unquestioned access to Jennifer's complex and the surrounding area.
So after hours and hours of forensic video analysis, we are left with a ghost. A short individual in work clothes whose face was either miraculously or meticulously shielded from view.
And their race, their definitive age, all of it remains completely unknowable.
And that's why the case has been stuck for so long. It's defined by these three competing theories, and each one is an attempt to resolve that central contradiction.
The impulsive, high-risk abduction versus the sophisticated, low-trace aftermath.
So let's break down the theories. Theory number one, which has been the primary focus for investigators for years.
The construction worker theory.
The supporting evidence for this is strong, right? Geographically and logistically, it makes a lot of sense.
It does. The Mosaic complex where Jennifer lived was undergoing massive renovations at the time. Huge construction projects.
Which means the complex was filled with a large transient workforce, subcontractors, temporary laborers, people who weren't residents.
This provides three key elements for a criminal: access, anonymity, and a built-in excuse for being on site at 7:30 in the morning.
And the clothing in the CCTV footage.
It's a perfect match. The suspect is dressed like a typical laborer. And maybe more importantly, these workers had the prime opportunity to observe the residents' routines.
They would know about Jennifer's predictable 7:30 a.m. departure. They'd know the layout of the complex.
And in some of these situations, construction or maintenance crews are even given master keys for unit access. That could explain the lack of forced entry if she was ambushed at the door by someone who looked like they belonged there.
The location where the car was dumped also seems to support this theory.
It does. The Huntington on the Green complex is right next to the Mosaic. It's an easy walk.
So a worker could park the car there around noon and just walk back to the Mosaic job site. They'd blend right in, just look like someone coming back from a lunch break.
And that height range, 5'3" to 5'5", is statistically very plausible within a diverse pool of temporary laborers.
But then you hit the wall again.
You always hit the wall. The forensic cleanliness of the car.
How does an opportunistic worker, acting on a sudden, violent impulse, also possess the forethought and the skill to execute a clinically sterile wipe down of a vehicle?
It doesn't track. The discipline required for that cleanup, the management of a secondary location for 4 hours, the flawless disposal of the car, it suggests a level of criminal experience far beyond a temporary worker acting on a whim.
So it leaves you wondering, was the worker outfit a deliberate disguise?
It's a question you can't escape. Which brings us to theory 2, the jealous ex or an acquaintance.
The classic profile in a case like this.
It is, and the main strength of this theory is that it explains the silence and precision of the initial abduction.
Because if Jennifer knew her attacker, she would have willingly opened her door.
Exactly. It neutralizes the need for forced entry, and it explains why there was no sign of a struggle inside her condo.
And only someone close to her would have that intimate knowledge of her very specific 7:30 a.m. departure time. It allows for perfect timing.
True, but the factors that disprove this theory are, I think, substantial. They're almost overwhelming.
Every known partner, ex-boyfriend, friend, and family member was thoroughly investigated.
They were. They all cooperated. They all took polygraphs. They all had confirmed alibis. They were all cleared.
And then you have the visual evidence of the phantom suspect.
Yeah. That person is wearing loose, light-colored work clothes. That just doesn't align with anyone in Jennifer's documented social or professional circles.
In the crime scene itself, the car, it was too clean, too ruthless.
If this is a crime of passion, a personal attack, you expect some emotional sloppiness, a stray hair, an errant fingerprint left in a moment of panic. The clinical nature of the cleanup argues strongly against a deeply personal motive.
Okay, that leaves us with the third major theory, human trafficking, or some other form of organized crime.
And this theory is really an attempt to explain the extraordinary criminal intelligence that was on display.
The evidence supporting it is pretty compelling. The clinical precision, the fact that she vanished without a trace, the meticulously clean car.
And the complete lack of any ransom demand. No communication whatsoever. These are all hallmarks of a professional organization that's designed for the permanent removal of a person.
The meticulous wipe down of the car fits this profile perfectly. It suggests a criminal group that is laser focused on eliminating evidence and maintaining deniability.
It does. But there are also significant logistical counterarguments.
Such as?
A professional organized crime group, especially one in the business of trafficking, would almost never use the victim's own vehicle for transport. It's too risky. It's too traceable.
They'd use a stolen van, a ghost car, something they can burn or dump easily.
Precisely. And they absolutely would not park that car in a public lot just a mile down the road 4 hours later. They prioritize distance and time. They would move that vehicle hundreds of miles away immediately to create a false trail.
So we come full circle back to the same analytical bafflement.
We do. The crime is like a Frankenstein's monster. It has the localized, high-risk feel of an opportunistic street crime.
But it's combined with the chilling precision and intelligence of a premeditated professional operation.
The criminal, or criminals, appeared to possess two completely divergent skill sets. And that's why the file defies any easy categorization.
So when you synthesize all of this, the reason the case is still cold isn't necessarily because of a failure in the investigation.
No, it's because the criminal success. It was a highly successful, almost perfect criminal execution.
Let's just list the critical points of success that this person achieved, all at the same time.
Okay, number one, they achieved silent surprise at a busy, secure condo complex. They got her into her own car without a single witness.
2, they had access to a secondary controlled environment, a place to hold her for 4 hours before they built with the car.
3, they meticulously cleaned that Malibu of every last piece of usable forensic evidence. This wasn't a quick wipe, it was a clinical sweep.
And 4, the most improbable success of all.
They managed to walk directly past a security camera while remaining completely, visually unidentifiable, thanks to that impossible alignment with the fence.
That complete success rate is what created this permanent deadlock. There is no more physical evidence to analyze.
Which leaves the entire case dependent on one thing.
Testimonial evidence. Someone knowing something or someone seeing something that day that they dismissed as normal at the time.
And this deadlock, this frustration, it led to an extreme reaction from Jennifer's family. They felt the Orlando Police Department was not being transparent.
And that frustration culminated in a truly unprecedented legal battle.
The Kesse family sued the OPD, a public records lawsuit, to force the department to release the entire unredacted case file.
Which is an act of desperation, really. They felt they had no other choice.
They needed access to the raw data, the crime scene photos, the evidence logs, the full unedited forensic reports, so they could fund their own private investigation.
And the fact that they succeeded, that a family acquired the majority of an active, high-profile cold case file through a lawsuit, that is highly, highly unusual.
It's almost unheard of. And now they are funding their own costly private investigation. They're reanalyzing everything.
They're using modern tech to try and enhance that blurred CCTV footage. They're trying to track down and re-interview every construction worker who was at the Mosaic back in 2006.
But even with all that effort, public and private, the core analytical problem is still there.
The bafflement of precision.
The crime file still refuses to give up a single coherent profile. The sophistication of the cleanup and the move past the camera, that suggests a high degree of criminal intelligence.
But the abduction itself, the swiftness, the high-risk window that suggests proximity and opportunity, it points right back to someone like a construction worker.
So what are we looking for? That's the question that remains. Is it one person who is somehow both impulsive and clinically intelligent?
Or are we looking for two people? One who does the initial strike, and a second, more experienced partner who handling the professional cleanup and disposal.
The theory that holds right now is that Jennifer Kesse was meticulously removed from her life by a single, determined silhouette who knew how to exploit one fleeting moment of vulnerability.
And that silhouette left behind nothing but a ghost of a vehicle and the shadow of a phantom on a grainy video. The complete lack of trace evidence has created a deadlock that, so far, has been permanent.
All the physical evidence has been exhausted. Jennifer's cell phone was never found. Its final ping, its last location, remains one of the most critical unsolved data points. It could be the key to finding that secondary location.
So the file remains open, and the ultimate conclusion to this case, if there ever is one, is pending the discovery of one single new piece of evidence.
And at this point, it's most likely to be testimonial, not biological or electronic. Someone has to talk.
The individual who executed this crime with such chilling efficiency, they're still out there. They're relying on that perfect execution to keep them anonymous, blending back into the community.
They are.
We want you to consider the single largest failure point of this investigation, the area that is most shielded from our understanding.
The 4-hour gap.
What does that 4-hour gap truly conceal about the safe, controlled environment that person had access to? The place where Jennifer was held, the place that gave the abductor the time and the security to plan the perfect, sterile disposal of her car.
That's the black hole at the center of this case.
The key to breaking this deadlock might not be in reanalyzing old evidence one more time. It might be in a single detail someone, somewhere remembers about that morning, a truck that didn't belong, a strange conversation, a person who looked out of place, maybe walking back toward the Mosaic complex around noon.
Something that seemed insignificant then, but means everything now.